Hello. Today we are in our fourth installation and the final installation of our VUU Educator Series, celebrating those individuals who have impacted education in Virginia, the Richmond area, and beyond. So we want to end our series with a bang. We've, as I've said, like to save our best for last. And so today we will be interviewing none other than Dr. Lucille Brown, who not only serves as a Board of Trustee member for Virginia Union University, but has greatly impacted the field of education wherever she has so desired to make her impact known. And so, Dr. Lucille Brown, I do want to thank you so very much for agreeing to this interview with me today and for sharing your words of wisdom to educators and others across the state, nation, and beyond. So, again, thank you so much.
You're certainly welcome, and thank you also for those very kind words and that lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I'm delighted. I'm delighted to be with you today.
Yes, ma'am. So what we want to do to begin with is to let other individuals know why you have been selected to be the final individual that we interview for our series, and to kind of validate why I said that we're saving the best for last. So, if you could just but tell us a little bit about yourself, and not only about yourself, but why did you choose education as a career field?
All right, thank you. I'd like first to share a little bit about my educational experience in terms of preparation. Richmond is my home, and I was graduated from Armstrong High School here in Richmond. Then I received my Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Virginia Union University. My degree was received magna cum laude. Then I earned my Master's of Science degree at Howard University, another HBCU, as an honor graduate in zoology. Following that, of course, I did additional study in supervision and administration, because you can tell that initially I was preparing to try to be the best biology teacher that I could be. But then I did work in administration and supervision at the University of Virginia, the University of Richmond, and Virginia Commonwealth University. Of course, and finally, when the College of William and Mary decided that they wanted to have a superintendent in residence as a part of their education program, I was the first superintendent that they asked to be the superintendent in residence there. And of course, subsequent to these experiences, I was awarded an honorary doctorate by Virginia State University and the University of Richmond. So that's the preparation that I had in order to enter the field of education. A little more about myself. I've always been interested in service to others. And so my life has also had quite a voluntary aspect to it. For instance, as you mentioned, I do serve as a member of the Board of Trustees at Virginia Union and chair the Academic Affairs Committee for them. But also I chair the Board of Trustees at my church, which is Garland Avenue Baptist Church. There have been some other experiences that I've had that have been meaningful. For instance, I was a part of the initial group that's called Virginia Heroes. It's a mentoring group that was established by the outstanding tennis player Arthur Ashe, who was a graduate of the Richmond Public Schools. That mentoring experience was very meaningful for me as well. To make sure that that I knew a bit about the financial aspect of it, I served as a member of the board of directors of Consolidated Bank and Trust Company, which of course now is known as Premier Bank. In addition to that, it's been my privilege to have served as president of the board of directors of the Black History Museum and Cultural Center. I served as chairman. Now, however, I serve as a member of the board. Virginia Union has honored me as their Distinguished Alumna of the Year. And last year, I was inducted into the Virginia Union Athletic Hall of Fame for my support of their activity, of their program, not that I've been able to be a participant. And so it's been my pleasure to serve not only my institution, but to serve my community as well in ways of supporting the program of the church and the program of institutions that that are meaningful. For instance, each year when I was a little more active, I planned the annual fundraiser for the Richmond Greater Richmond Urban League, and have been active with that. Um, these are some of the activities, of course, that have kept me busy. And of course, I would like to mention that um, having spent 38 years in Richmond Public Schools as an employee and 3 years from beginning my experience in Fairfax County, I'm very proud of the fact that the board honored me by naming its new middle school the Lucille Brown Middle School, which is a very humbling experience and for which I'm very grateful. And so the community has been very good to me also. That's sort of in a nutshell a little bit of my experience. But then you ask, why did I choose education as a career? I think one of the main reasons is because I had in my early life teachers who were outstanding, and I wanted to replicate what they were doing for us. I thought it was wonderful. For instance, when I was at Armstrong, on two occasions, I chaired the accreditation process. And a part of that process, as a part of it, you have to submit your faculty credentials. It was then that I found out that 87% of the faculty at Armstrong had its master's degree in the discipline within which they taught. And the other 13% were really some of the young people who were still working toward that. These are the persons who influenced me greatly in terms of what career I would choose. I knew I was interested in science. And one of the reasons is because my biology teacher at Armstrong was a Mrs. Hattie Gaskin. To give you just an example of preparation, Hattie Gaston was a graduate of Virginia Union University with a bachelor's degree in biology. She earned her master's degree in biology at the University of Michigan. Then she did further study at Woods Hole in Massachusetts. Well, she brought to the classroom then depth of information, excellent skills in preparing labs and the like for us. And at that time, we did not have a regular biology laboratory the way they did in the primary in schools that were meant for Caucasian children. Hattie Gaston was one who could take a dissecting pan and a scalpel and plan a lab experience for you that enabled you to learn everything that you were supposed to learn. Then we had to go across the hall to the restroom to wash our hands. Well, it was not until Armstrong moved to its current, well, not current, but its former location on 31st Street that I had an opportunity to teach in a room that was a biology lab, having access to gasoline and water. But when Hattie Gadsden taught us, she was an excellent teacher. And that sort of let me know I wanted not only to go into education, but I wanted to major in biology because she was such an outstanding teacher. And I had some family influence as well. My brothers, the oldest, was a chemistry major at Virginia Union. He, however, chose a field in science, but not teaching. But the brother who was just older than I attended Virginia Union, majored in biology, became a teacher in the public school system of New York City. He did his master's work there and both postgraduate work there. He influenced me to consider education because I heard him say many things about his students, which enabled him to feel that he was in a profession that from which he could see some results because he could see how he was influencing the lives of young people who needed that influence. So I would say that two main influences were the excellent teachers that I had, particularly in high school, and my family influence because my brother went into education. My mother was a Hartshorne University graduate. Now, you almost have to know a little bit about Virginia Union to remember Hartshorne. That was the college for women when women were not a part of the seminary. So my mother, but she did not become a teacher as such. She taught the 4 children that she had at home. She became our first teacher, and so but she always supported my uh, desire to go into education. I have not regretted it one bit because I have had an opportunity to see what a positive influence can do in the life of a young person. It's been my privilege to have served Virginia Union in terms of the Board of Trustees, to serve my home school system, Richmond Public Schools, as a teacher, as a high school principal, as director of instruction, assistant superintendent of schools, associate superintendent of schools, and then to climax my career by accepting the board's invitation to become superintendent of schools. And so it has been for me a very um, rewarding experience to see the young people whose lives that I might have had an opportunity to impact. Um, if I were to choose again, I would choose the very same one because education has been really a very rewarding experience for me as I see young people grow and come back and make contributions to their community.
Wow, Dr. Brown. I knew I was going to be in for a treat when I was interviewing you, but question number one is just really blown my mind. There it is no small feat to have a school named after you, and I think that that is one of the highest honors, to demonstrate not only your love and passion, but your commitment and dedication to the field of education, and especially to the students and the families that you have committed your lifelong service to. So, again, thanks to you for all that you have done
Thank you
in the
so much.
field of education. And what I also heard as you talked about not only yourself and your family members, but also some of your great teachers, is that Virginia Union University has a deep and rich history of educating the best and the brightest educators for the Richmond area and again beyond. And so I do want to thank you again for your commitment to Virginia Union University and ensuring that we continue that rich legacy. I want to take a moment here to thank you for being instrumental to bringing me to Virginia Union University. You served on my hiring committee, and the next thing I know, I got that call. So thank you, and I hope that I'm honoring you just a little bit
And
by the work that I am helping to work with my team to lead
yes,
at Virginia Union University. So
you know
thank
what?
you.
I know I've seen it from not close up, but I've seen it in various ways. I want to thank you for the outstanding job you're doing in helping to prepare that next generation to go into the field of education. I've gotten some excellent reports, and I just want to say, keep up the good work. Anything that I can ever do to support you. In addition to, we try to make sure on the Academic Affairs Committee that we have in place various policies that support the president's vision and what you are doing to promote his vision. And I thank you so much for your dedication at what for Richmond, many Richmonders is our favorite HBCU. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
you're
One
welcome.
of the things that I heard you say in your in answering the first question is that you had great teachers, and you specifically named one of them who helped to shape your decision to go into education. And as we work with individuals who are entering into the field of education or thinking about entering into the field of education, one of the things that we help them to do is to shape their philosophy of education, because you need to know what you stand on, what you are going to leave as your impact, what is your legacy for the field of education. And so my next question is, could you share just a little bit about your philosophy of education? And then how has your philosophy of education shaped your experiences as an African American educational leader?
All right, I'll be delighted to. Let me begin by saying that I believe with a passion that every individual, every student is entitled to an excellent education. Every student, because that prepares this person to take advantage of various opportunities that will come their way in the future, and to prepare them for realizing the limitless future that all really deserve. And so, uh, throughout my 41 years, I have seen that if we implement best practices in teaching, and that if we truly believe that all students can learn at a significantly higher level if we involve them appropriately, then they will live up to the high expectations that we have of them. All students can learn at significantly higher levels. Now, that reminds me, however, that at one time in the Richmond Public Schools, we had a tracking system. This was prior to integration. There was an A track and a B track. Well, my principal at that time, Mr. George Peterson, or just before that time, was valedictorian of his high school class. And when he became the first African American principal at Armstrong, he went to central administration and said to them, now this is the valedictorian of his class, he said, I am not smart enough to look at a student and say, you are going to be going to college because I can see that you are a good student. You're going to be an A track. And then look at another student. He says, I'm not smart enough to look at a student and say, you're not going to make it in higher education, so you're going to be put in the B track. He said to the persons in central administration, at Armstrong, there will be one track. All of my students will be in the A track because we believe that all of them can perform at higher levels. We believe that if we involve them in the right way, they will do whatever they wish to do because they're able to do it. They did not challenge him. So we had one track at Armstrong. There's some persons who came to Armstrong to work who never knew we even had a B track because Mr. Peterson got rid of that. But he knew well enough to know that all we had to do was involve students in the right way, and all of them would be able then to meet the expectations and to be the kind of student that they wanted to be. For instance, we were then one of the two high schools, when I was there, two high schools serving African American students. And I had a set of twins in school. I taught them biology. One was interested in a project in physiology. Now, I had graduate physiology as a part of my master's program at Howard, but I really felt I needed some more depth to be able to advise this young man appropriately. So I called the Medical College of Virginia, spoke with the person in the physiology department, not knowing I was talking to the chairman of the department, and asked if I could borrow a laboratory manual from them. And when he found out why I wanted it, oh, he was enthusiastic about letting me have it. This young man developed an excellent science project, had very limited resources from home, but had an awful lot of intellect. He was a good student. And so he earned through that scholarship, he earned a 4-year scholarship to an HBCU. There were 5 HBCUs who were cooperating in the program at this time. We were not members of the Science Association of Virginia. We were not invited to be members at that time. We were in a group called the Virginia Science and Teachers, Mathematics and Science Teachers Association. And so that let this young man know, and it affirmed for me what I said to many of my students, I guess every class I had, that there is no connection between resources that you may have in your pocket and the intellect that you have in your head. So we're going to make sure that you perform at the highest level, and then you're going to be able to apply for and get one of those nice paying jobs that then will put the resources in your pocket. That let me know that all students could in fact learn if you have high expectations for them and if you involve them in the right way. Then we had another set of twins who were excellent. who, when they were graduated, well, in their senior year, one was president of senior class, and the other was president of the Student Government Association. Their resources from home were so meager that I don't think their mother ever gave them money to buy a school lunch. But when they came to school every day, they had a brown bag that had lunch in them. And youngsters knew that what was in that bag was so good, they tried to sometimes to exchange their school lunch for what was in that bag. But we enjoyed seeing that. But when they were graduated, the University of Virginia was admitting African Americans then. And so they admitted these two young persons. One was interested in science and the other was interested in social science. They told Wesley that he could come. They were welcoming him. He told them he wanted to major in mathematics, and they told him he could not major in mathematics, but he could major in engineering. Now, when you consider all of the math as engineering, we never understood that, but decided we weren't going to question it because he had a free ride for 4 years. Anyway, when he got to the University of Virginia, you know he made A's in all of his math classes. You know that they really did him a favor when he went into aeronautical engineering. He did so well at the University of Virginia, MIT offered him a fellowship to come there to get his master's, which he did. He did so well at MIT that MIT offered him a fellowship then to get his doctorate there. The Science Museum of Virginia was so impressed with the fact that one of our students, a Richmond student, had done so well, they invited him to come back to talk to a group of students to encourage them to do the best that they can and to consider science, the field of science, as a major. He did. But the first thing that he said when he stood before the students is, I do want you to know that I am where I am today because of the caliber of education that I received in Armstrong High School. Now, you know that made us very proud. But even better than that, when State University when Arizona State University established its Goldwater School of Aeronautical Engineering and asked MIT to send them a consultant, they sent them Wesley, our Wesley Harris. When the University of Tennessee established this program in aeronautical engineering, they asked MIT to send a consultant. They sent them Wesley. So that shows that if we have if we have the privilege of offering to our students an excellent education, if we can get them to the point that they believe in themselves, that they are confident that they can do it if they work hard, if we make sure that we give them the kind of support that they need, because many of our students will come to school not having maybe the support that some of us had at home. That is, your parents letting you know your next step from high school is college. We never had to consider what the next step was. We just knew what it was going to be. But if we do these things for our students, then they were going to really make us very, very proud. Not only on a national level, as Wesley did, but his brother, William, became chairman of I guess the University of Virginia would call it the Social Studies Department. It was history and political science, which was his interest. He became chairman of the department. I saw him last year when he returned for his high school classes anniversary. He has since retired. Wesley is not retired yet, but he has since retired. And we are delighted he's back at home, where in his community, we know he's also going to make an outstanding contribution. So my philosophy is really founded in the belief that all students can learn at significantly higher levels than some may expect if we involve them in an educational experience in the appropriate manner. It is grounded in the fact that we know that all students deserve an excellent educational experience, and we feel that we have an obligation to prepare them for these wonderful opportunities that are available to them now. Just in Richmond City, when I was graduated from Virginia Union, we didn't have this large biotechnology area downtown, but now we do have it. And when the governor came to Virginia Union to be the speaker last year before COVID-19, he said that at these biotechnology areas, he was looking for students to accept jobs in that area that would begin at $76,000 a year. Now, anybody who knows that that's available should say, I'm going to do the best I can because I want to make sure that I can take advantage of these wonderful STEM opportunities that are available to me. I guess I know a little more about that than some areas because of my interest in and continued involvement in the STEM program. Uh, but I do believe that if we involve students in the right way, all of them can be successful. Um, I don't understand sometimes how systems right now throughout the country are experiencing high rates of withdrawal or high dropouts of students. I think back to when we had segregated schools and we had all kind of barriers that we had to just take care of. At Armstrong, one year, our withdrawal rate was 3%. 3. And the only reason it was 3 is because some children's parents were in the military. And when father moved to a new location, the family moved. But that was not really withdrawal. That was just transferring to another school system. And all we had to do for the State Department of Education was to indicate it with the appropriate code and to let them know the system to which the students transferred. So with a love of young people and with a commitment to do the best that you can to give them an excellent education, I think that we will be preparing this next generation like I know you are doing. And so, and it's really an honor for me to do it.
Well, yes, ma'am. That, a philosophy of education that begins with high expectations with students is, I think, a philosophy that we all as educators can benefit from and one that we should all hold dear. So thank you for having that philosophy. And not only just having that philosophy, but for the actions that you took to make sure that that philosophy then was interpreted into the experiences, the strategies, just the outreach and mentorship that you undertook with your students, and I'm sure that you fostered for your teachers as you moved up through the ranks of your educational career. So thank you for that.
I tried to.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things as you ended that second response that you began to talk about were some challenges. You mentioned the challenge of dropout rates that we experience now. So for this third question, I want to ask if you could focus just a little bit on some challenges that you faced in your career, especially as an African American educator, and then how did you overcome those challenges?
All right. I'd like to share a couple of situations with you. One of the challenges that we faced at Armstrong, and one of the challenges that we currently face with some of our HBCUs, is that persons have a predetermined vision of the quality of experience that students have there, which is totally inaccurate. Totally inaccurate. Now, for instance, let me put this on a school level first, Armstrong, because my best examples are from my personal experience. When the schools were integrated in 1970, I had the opportunity to interact with two parents that I remember to this day. One was a parent who was moving into the East End area of the city, and a person who was in one of the responsible city departments, not city hall, but city, said to the parent who was moving into the East End, you don't want to buy that home because your child then will be in the zone to attend Armstrong. But you see, what he didn't count on was the parent was going to come and discuss it with me. So when she came and told me that, I said, well, take into consideration, because she had come to the conclusion that she wanted the child to be in another school, which is a fine high school in the city, but we weren't going to be as good as this other one. So I said to her, let me first give you some information. The person who said this to you, I'm bypassing the fact that there's a change occurring in this community. I'm going to focus just on the point that you have about the school. I said, the person who said this to you is not aware of the fact that in this high school, we offer mathematics through calculus. In this high school, we offer advanced placement, biology, and chemistry, as well as government. In this high school, we have persons who go to the General Assembly to have experiences there. In this high school, there is offered for students every course that they would need for the next step. I said, what I'm going to ask you to do, you buy your home where you would plan to buy it. Then you have your child come here, and at the end of the year, I want you to come back and have a conversation with me. The fact that she took me up on my offer, the fact she came to discuss it with me, let me know that she probably was going to accept my offer. You know what happened? She came back at the end of the year. She said, my child has had the best experience in high school than she has ever had. I said, well, one of the reasons is because she had some of the best faculty members, the best teachers, maybe, that she has ever had. I wasn't throwing off on anybody else. I was telling them about the faculty. She said, would you do me the favor of assigning her to the same teachers next year? I said, I wish I could, but I can't do that. Because I said, the person who taught your child algebra is not assigned to teach the geometry. We have a person who's a specialist in that area. But when she goes to the geometry class, she's going to have the same experience. I said, the person who teaches your size earth science doesn't teach biology. It's a person who is a biology major who teaches that. The person who taught your child earth science was an earth science major. See, that's 9th grade. Biology is 10th grade. Chemistry is 11th grade. Physics is 12th grade. And I said to her, whoever is her English teacher, she's going to have an excellent experience. Anyway, when she left, she was very pleased. But she came back to tell me her child had the best experience. See, all I had asked her, just give us a chance, an opportunity. That's all. In many instances, that's all we're asking for. I guess the other challenge that I met that challenge through first establishing a good relationship with the parent. In any situation, I think education is a relationship career. How you relate with others is very meaningful. I'm hoping that at Armstrong, that when I became the principal, I'm hoping the teachers saw me as a teacher's principal, because I never asked them to do anything that I didn't do myself. When the then superintendent put in place a program that he called Teaching and Reading and Writing Across the Curriculum, and he wanted it to be put in all secondary schools, I called a faculty meeting and I said to them, I'm not talking to the English teachers, I'm talking to the rest of us. I said, you probably know as much about teaching secondary students how to get them to improve their reading and writing skills specifically. You probably know as much about that as I do, which is not an awful lot, because I was a biology major. I said, let's bring a college professor in here who specializes in this. Let's have that college professor give us a class, English 101 on reading and writing, and we'll be in a better chance to serve our students. The entire faculty bought into it. And I said to the assistant principal who I'd asked to be in charge of the program, I said, make sure that number one on that list of people in the class, make sure the first name is Lucille Brown, because I don't ask my teachers to do anything that I don't do. Well, they had taken baseline data at the beginning. At the end of the year, they got end of the year results to see what kind of growth the students had realized. Here comes the superintendent, says to me, I don't know what you did, but your students made the best growth of any secondary school, that's middle and high school, of any secondary school in the city. He said, so you know what I want you to consider? I said, what? I would like for you to become the director of instruction for the city of Richmond. You know what? I was in Richmond for 38 years. I applied for the job. So I applied for one job, and that was to become a teacher. In other instances, I think what I did during my tenure in the current job is what moved me to the second one. But I must say that therefore, when I got to the superintendency, I knew the system. I knew where the strong points were. I knew where the weak points were. And I knew, because I worked with an exceptional group of instructional specialists, that we were going to have a good 4 years. I said 4 years because I was 62 when I accepted the board's invitation. And I was going to be 66 by the time that first 4 years. The Commonwealth of Virginia said if you accept a superintendency, it can be for no less than 2 or more than 4 years. So I took I agreed to the 4 years, but I said, you know what, start looking now, because at the end of the 4 years, I will have put in 41 years, and it'll be time for me to sort of step aside. And true enough, because of the kind of persons we had in instructional specialists there, we had a wonderful time. I would say that during that time when I was superintendent, there was a community group that decided that they wanted to, a corporate group, that they wanted to do some things to help the Richmond Public Schools. The only problem was we had as the head of that group a person who fell in that category of thinking that maybe because the system had primarily or had more African American students than a Caucasian, that it might not be as good as another system, instead of coming in objectively. But what saved us is that we also had in that corporate group a man who had been a member of the school board, a current member of the school board, and he knew the quality of work that we did. So in that instance, we depended upon these two gentlemen to help the others to realize that if they look a little more closely, they'll see that you'll see they're doing much more in staff development than you think they could do with the amount of resources that they get from the state. And in terms of the student, back to the student, that student had a good experience. But then I had a second student who was profoundly deaf. The system had a program in place to serve students with special needs, but this parent did not want her child to be in that program. She wanted her child to be in a regular school, because after high school, she was going to live in a regular community. So she did. So she did not think at the beginning that we would take care of all of her needs, of the students' needs. But here again, I said to her, well, you need to just give us a chance. Let's see what happens. So she decided she would see. Of course, now I wasn't just going to put her in any class. I put her with persons that I knew were unusually sensitive to needs of students where they had special needs. So when I went to the mathematics teacher, I said, I know that when you get into your math, you are writing on that board a mile a minute, and you're talking a mile a minute at the same time you're writing, and you all just have a good time. I said, but I'm asking you to do this. When this student is in your class, please make sure that you always face the class when you're talking. She has hearing aids in both ears, but she also depends upon lip reading. She lip reads very well. And so I said, and to remind yourself, because all of us will forget, I said, pick out one of your students. And if you go to that board and start talking and writing at the same time, just tell the student to call your name. Just say, Ms. Brown, and you will know why she's calling your name. That is, you don't have your face facing the student. That worked out beautifully, because I worked it out through the teacher. You would think maybe that physical education would be another challenge in terms of giving her a regular experience, because I'm sure that if we had just had her to sit on the side and watch the others play ball, her mother would not have been satisfied at all. So you know what the teacher did? The teacher picked 2 of her strong students and said, I'm assigning you to the left side of this child, and I'm going to assign you to the right side. If you make sure that no ball ever hits her head, she was thinking about her hearing aids, that no ball ever hits her head, then I'm going to have a special surprise for both of you at the end of the year. Now, a ball never hit that child's head. And so working through that teacher, we took care of this deaf student. And she had a wonderful 4 years as an honor student in Armstrong. Then I had a youngster who was what they call them short people. I think you should not use the word dwarf. Short persons. And sometimes children are basically good, but sometimes they will tease someone if they're different from the way they are. And I guess some of our children saw that when they went to schools and they were of a different color. Anyway, they would tease this youngster. And I said, now, you know what? This young man is not going to make a good adjustment if he has to walk through these halls and be teased every time somebody sees. Well, and one way that you can sometimes change a dynamic is if you're a sports person. You know, you don't say anything bad about a football player. You don't say anything about a basketball player. He was too short to play football or basketball. He couldn't play tennis. Wasn't tall enough for that. Couldn't play golf. I don't think they had short golf going. But you know what? You don't have to be tall to be a goalie on a soccer team. So I went to the coach and I said, you know what? I want you to try out this youngster. Just give him a chance to compete with the others. Try this youngster out as a goalie, a center, a goalie on your team. He did. He blocked almost every ball that came his way. He became the excellent player on that soccer team. But guess what? As you're walking through the halls, you better not say anything wrong about him, because then you're going to have to be accountable to an entire soccer team. They became his advocate. And so that meant that the teasing just disappeared. You know, it takes a bit of creativity, but it also takes some relationship with your faculty, relationship with your parents, relationship with your students. I remember him till this day. A ball never got by him. He was the best center or goalie that anybody could have on a soccer team. And he had a good 4 years. You know, once we accept the students, like Virginia Union, we felt once we accepted the student, were obligated to find a way for that student to be successful. And so the challenge was enabling two students who had handicaps or situations that were beyond their control. And we solved those two by calling on the skill sets of experienced teachers. The third one, we just established a relationship with the parent so that she could trust what we would say. And once she saw that first year that what we said was true, of course, then she was able to move ahead from that point. I guess the most optimistic thing that we did was to establish in the community. Here again, this is a matter of when I was principal. When you're superintendent, your responsibilities are larger, but you still use the same basic strategies in helping to solve them. But we had our school was located in a part of the city, the far east end, in which the city had the housing authority had put in 4 housing authorities. You know, you call them projects. Mm-hmm. And so we not only served families that were affluent in terms of their financial situation, but we had a number of children from households in which there were limitations financially. In those kinds of situations, there are many reasons sometimes that children are not able to come to school as they'd like to. Sometimes they don't have a winter coat in the wintertime. Sometimes they don't have shoes. Sometimes they have to stay home and take care of the baby for the mother. Sometimes it's because they got in from a job so late that they couldn't make it. Multiple problems. So you know what we did? We established a committee of community leaders. The head leader was the judge of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. And we always went to her location because we knew she was really sacrificing to be a part of our team. We had I will not be able to name all of them because of time, but we had the social worker from the housing authority, the social worker from the city of Richmond, the attendance worker from Armstrong, the principal from Armstrong, another administrator from Armstrong, for fear the principal would have to miss it sometime. We had a person on that committee who could address any concern that a child had by meeting that need right away. The judge said to us, you know, in the beginning, I'm disappointed when I see a child come before me, because somebody, before she got to me, somebody should have helped her to solve that problem or help him solve that problem. We met usually bi-monthly, every 2 months, or as needed. If we needed to meet every month, we would do so. But see, at that time, we had an attendance worker who was committed to the fact that if a child had been absent from school for 3 days, she was at the door, finding out why, even before the committee, because there were many things that the school could do. I knew of the organization that supplied the shoes. All you have to do is call them, and whatever number of shoes you need, you can get them. Not just these flip flops. I mean, nice quality shoes. And a child should have at least one pair of nice quality shoes. In fact, one time the social work, well, all of the faculty knew that if you had a problem that you couldn't meet, then that's my problem. Make sure you come to me and discuss it. She came to me and said, you know what? I can't get this boy to come to school because his mother says that she can't get him out of the bed. I said, you got to be kidding. I said, does his mother work? She said, yes. I said, does this boy work? She said, no. I said, does his mother supply all the food and pay the rent? She said, yes. I said, does this fella supply either one? She said, no. I said, I'm going there. I went there. The mama admitted me. I said, I've come to see why your child is not in school. She said, because I can't get him out of bed. So real loudly, I said to her, would you like for me to go get him out of the bed? I knew that would mean that he was here. She said, I certainly would appreciate it. And she steps in the projects were cement, which meant that if you had any shoe on that had leather to, you could make a lot of noise going up the step. So I made sure that when I got to step 1 and 2 and 3, I made a lot of noise talking to her, and he heard me coming up the steps. By the time I got to the top step, he was full of clothes and ready to go to school. So I said, come on now, you're going to go to school with me. Today, you're going to start your day with me. I'm going to find out what's going on. But you know what? He really needed somebody who cared about him. You know, he didn't miss a day after that. Not because of what I said, but because I decided that I was going to come to school and get him because it was important for him to be in school. So therefore, after that, he decided it was important. But you can't ask a community person to go into a school, to a home and get a child. But you know, if you have the right relationship with your parents, you can do it. So when I went in there and I said, I'm going up here to get your son out of bed because I'm going to take him to school, he was dressed and ready to go by the time I got there. So that was a challenge. But the word got around, though, don't miss school, because if you miss school, Dr. Brown's going to be there to get you. And she's going to bring you back to school. But you know, that that was a challenge that we met in that way. So the attendance worker and the administration working together, and we met that. I think the hardest challenge was getting the corporate group to the point that they realized that what was going on in not just one school, but in the Richmond public school, was offering students a quality education, that we depended upon the parents not to teach them. Of course, if they could tutor them, fine. But they were paying us to do that. And we let them know it's our responsibility to teach. We want you to provide a quiet, comfortable place with plenty of light for the child to study when he gets home. Not with the television going, but quiet, so that the child can be the best that he can be. And of course, we usually had a parent-teacher association meetings when I was in a school, in which a large number of parents came each time, because they knew that we cared about their children. We wanted the best for them. And as a result, we got their cooperation. And we finally were able to convince the group, the corporate group, that they needed to really look at things objectively and evaluate us accordingly. We don't mind you evaluating us. Just be fair with what you put on paper. And during those 4 years, it ended up being a wonderful 4 years for me, because we did get that kind of support, and I had an excellent board. You know, when you have on your board a minister, that person got to be known as the conscience of the board, because she was going to make sure that any decision that was made to the benefit of students. We had an attorney, as from one of the largest law firms on the East Coast, who saw to it that decisions were always scientifically made, because I was accustomed to that, and that it reflected best practices. We had a teacher who knew what should be going on in the classroom. So we had a board that was committed to offering the best for students. So when you have a board like that, it's meaningful. I think that's why I was asked to be the first superintendent in residency at the College of William and Mary. The first question, these are students that who are preparing to become superintendents. The first question they asked me was, tell us how you maintain such a good relationship with your board. Because at that time we were reading that, the superintendent was having this contentious relationship about this or contentious relationship. Tell us how you maintain such a good relationship with your board. Because that was right down my line. So therefore I gave them all kind of strategies that will help you. Once you realize this is the body that hired you, you're going to respond accordingly. I gave them, whenever we're going to have any new initiatives, they had it in writing ahead of time, because I always wanted my board to make decisions from an informed perspective, not to guess to say, well, maybe it's a good practice. You bring it before them, have it well developed, have proof that it has worked someplace, or a rationale that shows that there's good evidence that it will work well for students. Having a good board makes an awful lot of difference in a school system as well. So I think I had few challenges when I was superintendent, because I knew enough about what was going on in the system to make sure that the things that had been problems were addressed. And I always tried to make sure that I kept my board well informed, that parents knew that decisions that were being made were made in the interest of their children. And I've shared the few challenges that I had at high school, and in each instance, it's because I knew the quality of the shoulders on which I was standing. You see, when I became superintendent, I had an instructional specialist in mathematics who had earned her baccalaureate degree from Johnson C. Smith University, but who had earned her doctorate in mathematics from Virginia Tech. So one challenge I had on how could you name a teacher? She was a teacher in middle school. How could you name a teacher in middle school to be instructional specialist? Well, the person who challenged us, I said, well, I'm assuming you did your baccalaureate degree in mathematics. He said yes. I said, did you get a master's in mathematics? No, it was in a field of education. I said, did you get a doctorate in mathematics? He said no. I said, well, now you see why I identified this middle school teacher. She had a reputation of accepting students who maybe disliked math, but by the time they finished in her class one year, she had them loving math, and she had given them a good experience, and I knew she could do it for the district. That kind of person. I stood on some wonderful shoulders and had some principals who knew that they were expected to be the instructional leader in the building, not just to see that the buses come in or that we have enough material, but you knew what was going on in each class. They accepted that responsibility. So that combination made for few challenges, and when there were challenges, they were challenges that could be met.
Yes. Dr. Brown, my bachelor's degree is in English, and I love stories. So as I am listening to you, I'm envisioning all that you see, and I just somehow want to be transported back in time so that I could be a teacher for you, or even one of your students or parents, because it is just so evident the relationships that you built,
Yes.
which again, as you just said, left you with few challenges, because when you build those relationships and when your actions demonstrate that you care, then you
Yeah.
are able to make sure that the essence of education, which is to move individuals from a point of not knowing to knowing and
That's
to being productive,
right.
can
I
occur.
believe in themselves. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
But I want to commend you for being an English major. I know a couple of English majors I'd like to mention now, but wouldn't be appropriate because they're employed somewhere else. English majors who are doing outstanding job. One right now is superintendent of a major school system in Virginia. Undergraduate English major at Virginia Union University. Those are the ones I know. They are alumni of Virginia Union. My HBCU. But
Yes,
I want to
ma'am.
commend you for being an English major, because with an English major, you can go in a number of directions according to your interests and according to what you feel might be an opportunity. I want to commend you for that because I've seen some outstanding performance in various fields from persons who started out with that English major because they knew that's the foundation that they needed to go higher in any career that they would desire. Yes, indeed.
Yes, ma'am. One of the things that you just mentioned right now are HBCUs. And many HBCUs began as manual or training colleges. And many of those manual or training colleges prepared educators. I'm originally from Albany, Georgia, and my HBCU is Albany State University, and it was begun as Albany Bible Manual and Training Institution. And many teachers originated from that institution, but not only teachers, but teachers of color.
Yes.
So, teaching has historically been a career choice for individuals of color.
Mhm.
However, over time, this trend has changed. So, if you could spend just a few moments talking about why you feel perhaps individuals of color are not choosing teaching as a career, as many as had chosen the education career in the past. And then what can we do to recruit more individuals of color into the field of education?
Yes. Well, let me say this. I do feel that today, and particularly really today, by virtue of the Black Lives Matter initiative, that there is a greater awareness of the fact that opportunities needed to have been made available to all persons, whether persons of color or otherwise, and even in the past. But I think now young people have many more options than we had in the past. And so as a result, you didn't want to be in some areas, like you wanted to work in the church, but you didn't necessarily want to be the minister. You wanted to work in certain fields, but you maybe didn't want to be the person who would be the leader. But now there are so many areas, options available. When the governor came and said that he had all of these jobs that couldn't be filled, and they started at 76,000, I said, gee, with every STEM student here needs to be looking at what he just said, and there are higher salaries offered. Now, the other side of that coin, I do think, however, today education is viewed now more so than in yesterday as a profession that deserves respect, a profession that has laid the foundation for all of these other advances that persons have made in other fields, that has been underappreciated and underfunded. So I think that we're doing a better job now of paying our teachers, and they do have to live and live in according to the cost of living in various communities. And so it's important that we not only appreciate the profession, but that we compensate them accordingly. I was just reading in the newspaper 2 days ago that the legislature is now addressing the formula that's used to fund education in the Commonwealth of Virginia. See, when from the time that I became an assistant superintendent, we've been trying to get the legislature to make a decision about making the formula fairer. But you see, at the time, the formula was skewed toward giving money to the counties and less to cities. And because we had Fortune 500 companies in Richmond, um, it made the formula that they used made Richmond a rich system and made the counties poorer, when in reality it was just the opposite, because we had more persons who would fall below the poverty line in Richmond than in any county in our immediate environment. And so I'm glad that they're now trying. I really believe that because of the climate now, they're going to make a better choice. We have people in the legislature like Dolores McQuinn, who was on Richmond School Board when I was superintendent, who's now in the legislature. She's going to be doing everything that she can to make sure that education in all districts we receive its fair share. That's all we wanted. We wanted our fair share, but we were not getting that because of the formula that was used. Um, I do believe that there's some things that we could do to recruit students, particularly to the field of education. People used to refer to Virginia Union as the best secret over on Lombardy Street. We had a lot of good things going on. I can remember when my husband was practicing. He's deceased now, but I would say as many as probably 75% of the practicing doctors in Richmond at that time were Virginia Union graduates. And of course, then they went on to various places, a lot to Howard, as my husband did, Howard University and Meharry, but they went to other universities as well, to their medical school, and did well. So I think there's some things that we could do, depending upon the distribution of the Union Night. I believe that we could run a series of articles and ask our alumni to not only help us in recruiting students generally, but to let them know the excellent school of education that we have, and that it can open all kinds of doors for them if they were to come. Such things as, and see, then it would be going to, I know 8,000, and they were trying to increase that number of communications going out to alumni. My local chapter is the Tom Harris Alumni Association. I was just talking with the president last night. He was calling me from Philadelphia. He wanted me to know that our chapter has decided that our contribution to the school this year, particularly during this COVID time, and we were not able to have our regular fundraising luncheon, but if there is a student, a senior, who is scheduled for graduation and has not been able to meet its financial obligations, our chapter is going to see to it that we take care of it. So any senior who is threatened with not being able to get his diploma because he owes some money to the school that he's not able to make, Tom Harris is going to step up and try to see to it that we take care of it entirely. So in like manner, if we were to have the alumni associations, when they get their union night, if we ran a series on the importance of education as a major and the kind of things that we do in our school of education, I think that could help us an awful lot. I do believe too that we could help ourselves in terms of retaining students. I think every student deserves to have a mentor. For many of us, that mentor is at home. I'm remembering that at the funeral of my husband, my son spoke for the family, and he made a statement like this. He said, for many young people, they have to look to others outside the home for a mentor, like Michael Jordan or the football players, or outstanding people like that, Arthur Ashe. He said, but I didn't have to look any further than my home, because my mentor was right in my household, and we communicated continuously. I think every student deserves to have a mentor, and I think we could help retain our students, and of course, hopefully that we would be able to meet some even at the high school level, and sort of guide them toward education, or Virginia Union's education, school of education, that could help us an awful lot also. As I thought about that question, I said, I wonder if there are some practice teaching experiences that we could afford our students. I really think that with the problem that school systems are having now in hiring teachers generally, when I look at how many teachers Richmond Public Schools currently are short of, I think that we would get all kinds of support from our local school systems. Richmond, Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, Charles City, Newkent, Dinwiddie, Powhatan, Goochland, all of these systems are within 50 miles of the university. And of course, I think that once we have our recruiting team from the university also making contact with all of the with the appropriate persons in these school districts, we're going to help our school to have more students to choose to have Virginia Union as a choice, not just going because they may not be able to get into a specific school that they would like. So I think that if there was some um, practice teaching experience that we could afford our students, I think that would help them to stick with us in education, and would encourage some persons even to choose education, as a career. Um, I think ultimately, um, when they realize that education is moving to the point of respect that it should be, when they're getting proper compensation, I think that when those of us who are in education share with others what a rewarding experience it is to work with young people and to help them to reach their uh, highest potential in terms of their goals and careers in life. If we were more vocal about what a wonderful personal experience it is to be able to influence a young person's life in that way, keep them in moving in the right direction, that could also help us to gain more students into the School of Education. Um, I think that we no longer need to be the best secret on Lombard Street. I think they should know that we have an outstanding School of Education, and that in one instance, and let's reach back and say that in one situation, this was before you came to be with us, but a young man was graduated from Virginia Union from the School of Education. When he went to teach in Henrico County, his first year of teaching, he was selected from his school as being the teacher of the year. Well, now there's some good stories that we can reach back and get to share with a little dossier that we prepare for the School of Education and get them into counselors' hands. A lot of counselors don't do what they could do to help youngsters generally to prepare for applying to college. And so if we had a kind of booklet or handout or flyer that would give some facts about the School of Education, I think that would go a long way. And we could mail a few to some of our alumni that we feel the presidents of the Alumni Association, and ask them to share with their association information that's in there. And when they find out what a self-fulfilling experience being a teacher is, um, I think we'll have success in more students considering education as a major. And I think there are enough of us out here who have had very self-fulfilling experiences by virtue of being in the field of education and helping to influence the lives of young people looking toward the future generation. But I'd love to see our English teacher in residence too help us to get that. I will say more than just a flyer. Something that would have maybe a fold to it. And on the front of it would be Virginia Union University's School of Education. Maybe no other school has done it, but that would be a good reason for School of Education to do it. All we would have to do is find the resources. And I believe Dr. Lucas would help us to find it, because that would be bringing people into the university. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. I have heard that charge. And whenever you speak, I shall listen. And so,
You're very kind. Thank you.
yes,
But
ma'am.
I want you to know it's been a real joy for me to talk about some of my experiences as an educator, because Virginia Union is a school that prepared me for that. I don't know whether you had an opportunity or not to meet Ruby Townsend Bryan before she died. She died about a couple of years ago. Her portrait now hangs in the hallway at Allison Hall. She was an English teacher. That's the only reason I mentioned it to you. She was an English teacher, and I was a science major. But she made that course in English literature I'd taken from her in the beginning. She made that course in English so interesting that I used one of my electives when I had taken all of the electives we had in science, I used one of my electives to take an extra English course because it was she who really emphasized for us
Well,
that, when you first meet someone, they're going to judge you by how you express yourself. In other words, she was trying to get us away from saying every other word, And
yes,
she
ma'am.
was she was an excellent teacher and remembered Virginia Union, even at her death. But that was the quality of English persons we had. I have high respect for English teachers and for English majors. Um, my my current pastor was an English major in Virginia Union, so uh, I know what English majors have been able to do. So I appreciate sincerely your giving me an opportunity to share with others what a wonderful experience I've had for 41 years of serving young people, their families, and the community. 3 years in Fairfax, but 38 years in Richmond, really close to 39. I say 41 years, but it's closer to 42. But 41 is all right with me. That gave me a wonderful experience to work with young people, and I have enjoyed working with every young person with whom I came in contact. There was only one that I felt I was not able to meet his need, and that was because he had a problem that it would take a medical specialist to deal with, and I was not able to get past um, being able to help him to realize that we were in school to help him. Um, he eventually, however, had to go back to the facility that was treating him, and I understand that he was graduated at that facility. So it's not bad when you felt you really have to meet the need of all but only one, and that meant that I had a wonderful 41 years, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity to having been made available to me.
Well, Dr. Brown, I so thank you for all that you have shared with us today. I think in some respects you're the best kept secret that came from Lombard Street
Oh, you're
because
very kind. Virginia
you
Union,
have
whenever I say Virginia Union is responsible for giving it to me. So you know what? That's why I do whatever I can to serve my alma mater. You can tell I love Virginia Union because it did so much for me. Yes, it did. And I want to thank
yes.
you sincerely for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brown. And with that, what I would like to do is conclude this final installation of our Black Educators series. And I would like to encourage individuals, if you have not viewed the initial installations, please go to VUU Television, YouTube, and watch those videos. We began with our past Teacher of the Year, National Teacher of the Year, Mr. Rodney Robinson, who hails from the area of Richmond, Virginia. And we have gone through many, many interviews with individuals who have impacted education in the area of Richmond and beyond. But again, I do want to say that we saved our best for last with this interview with Dr. Lucille Brown. And I hope that what she shared with you will in some way be some words of encouragement, whether you are a student in our education program, if you are considering the field of education, or an educator already, or an administrator, or just outside of the field of education, that you have gained some little nugget from what Dr. Brown has shared that lets you have an insight not only into the field of education, but in particular the field of education in regards to Black educators. So again, thank you all for watching this installation, and thanks Dr. Brown so very much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of Black History Month. But we do know Black History Month doesn't end in February. It continues, and it is a year-round celebration of all of the contributions African Americans have made to either field, education and beyond. So again, thank you so much, and please enjoy.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.